Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I think we're all concerned, obviously, these days, the rise of terrorist attacks. And here we are starting our new year with a tragic one in New Orleans, a follow-up to some sort of a terrorist attack in Las Vegas. There has been one in Germany, New York, and around. So what do we do with all of this? Well, perfect timing for us to have back with us Pastor Mark Biltz. He's the founder and the senior pastor of Shaddai Ministries in Washington State. He's well-known and popular speaker on the Feasts of the Lord and has authored 4 best-selling books and videos on the feasts that have gone global. He does have a website, esm.us, and there's a picture of the landing page, esm.us, for elshaddaiministries.us. Pastor Biltz, good to see you, friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's so great to be on your program, Perry.
Yeah, Happy New Year, buddy.
Oh, you too.
Are you got the warm storm up there? We got it down here.
Yeah, it's not too bad up here.
Oh, okay, good to see you. Well, listen, a lot to talk about. You have also, in addition to your writings on the feast, you've talked a lot about terrorist attacks and warnings about them. And here we are, 2 days on the other side of a couple of bad ones. What's your take?
I really think we're going to see more of these throughout this entire year. And a lot of it, I wrote in my book, America at War 2024, all the way through 2026, is because America doesn't understand Islamic terrorism.
I guess one of the things that our brains on tilt with, Pastor Biltz, is that 2 guys, one currently involved in the military, elite Green Beret, the other one high up in the ranks. How could they be radicalized to this point so quickly?
Well, I don't know if it's been that quickly. One of the things that people don't realize, this has been going on for many years. Pearson Publishing out of the United Kingdom is the #1 publishing company of textbooks, for example, at our colleges, and they're owned by Qatar. They're owned by Turkey. Our students, our kids have been taught Islamic terrorism almost and pro-Islam for decades, and no one is aware of this is going on in the curriculum. And then also these people, their whole goal is there's 3 stages of jihad. The first stage is jihad of the hand, where they want to kill the infidel. If they can't do that because they don't have the power, the second stage is jihad of the mouth, where they protest like you see in all of the colleges. And then the third stage is jihad of the heart, where they go and they plan long term of how they're going to do jihad of the hand. And we've gone through every one of those stages, and now we're going to see terrorism, I believe, throughout the entire United States with all these radicalized terrorists that we've allowed in.
Is this a fulfillment of prophecy?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. From Zechariah 1 and Joel 2, God says he will terrorize. In Zechariah 1, there are 4 horns that God is going to terrorize because they are trying to divide the land of Israel. And I believe those 4 horns are the quartet, which started in 2001 with the sole purpose of dividing the land of Israel. And as long as our State Department thinks this is a land issue and not a religious issue, they're going to continue to bungle this whole thing up. But it's definitely prophesied that God will terrorize those nations who are trying to divide the land of Israel and create a 2-state solution.
What do you think about the changing of the guards, Trump coming in more pro-Israel than the current administration, which almost seems to be totally anti-Israel, just disguised in its policies? The contrast couldn't be greater. What's your take on that, Pastor Biltz?
Well, I'm so glad that we have Trump instead of Kamala Harris. The thing that the Biden administration never did get is they were still doing terror, even though Biden was giving them everything they wanted. At least with Trump, we have someone who will be fighting, and that's what we need to do. As a matter of fact, I had a Muslim friend who had come to the Lord, and I asked him if he thought the church was asleep, and he said, no, it's in a coma. And part of the problem is we don't understand the times and seasons. Like the church is plucking at planning time and planning at plucking time. And this is why I wrote the book, America at War, so we could understand what the times and seasons are.
Does this action in New Orleans, and I'll have you comment on what happened in Las Vegas, it seems to be more than just coincidental. But the point being is, doesn't this ultimately point towards Iran? And given the condition, what's going on in the Middle East right now, that Iran probably in time will be neutralized?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there's a prophecy in the Bible that God will set his throne in Elam, and that is exactly where Susha was, where Daniel was, and Esther was. So Iran will be neutralized, but they're going to do everything they can as they're going down with the ship to take everything they can down with them. Iran is the modern-day Amalek, and Amalek in Hebrew means to chop up body parts. And that's the spirit of Amalek, which is exactly what Hamas did. And I pray that Trump takes out their oil fields, takes out their nuclear sites, or has Israel do that, and get rid of those Houthis in Yemen. And hopefully there finally might be some peace. But I think we're going to have to wait for Messiah to come.
How do you explain to us Americans that don't fully understand the conflict that's gone on for centuries, if not thousands of years, between the Shiites and the Sunnis?
Right. They can't stand each other. The difference is one of them believed that the descendants of Muhammad should be in control, and the other group believes his generals should be in control. So that was the main conflict at the very beginning. But it's always about money and power. That's what it's always about. And that's why the Saudi Arabians don't like the Iranians.
So where does that leave Egypt and Saudi Arabia?
Well, in the long run, Egypt and Saudi Arabia are all going to submit to the Messiah when he comes, and I believe that should be happening within the next 14 years. Okay,
but does Saudi Arabia eventually become part of the Abrahamic Accord?
Yes, I believe so. I believe they will. I believe Egypt will. But what's fascinating is in radical Islam wants to get rid of any Islamic leader who is not radical. They do not like secular leaders. And so that is going to be the problem within each of those countries. And that's why Sisi, over in Egypt has had problems as well.
We were surprised, Pastor Biltz, to find out during the war with Gaza and Hamas that there were these huge, huge tunnels all the way to Egypt, which makes Egypt complicit. And the problem we have is, back to Jimmy Carter, God rest his soul, making the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. Is that a violation of that agreement?
Totally, completely. And, in Islam, it's okay to lie. And so we have to understand who we are fighting against. And sometimes the enemy of our enemy is our friend. It's just a matter of we need to understand radical Islam a whole lot better. And you can't make peace with a suicide bomber.
Yeah. So do you think there is a connection between New Orleans and Las Vegas?
I think so, at least from what I hear. The truck was rented from the same facility. I believe there's probably a tie-in, but Iran has been wanting to take out Trump from the get-go. And I really believe Iran may continue to try to do that.
A lot has been said about the last 4 years and the porous borders and terrorists coming into this country, is that the amount of cells in the United States has grown. Can you explain what those are?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who's in the FBI who's in charge of a lot of those terrorist cells. Plus, the FBI just released the latest report, but there are thousands of terrorist cells in the United States. These are people who are being funded by the very money that we're giving to Iran and Hamas, that the Biden administration gave them funds. It's crazy that we're funding the very terrorists who are wanting to blow themselves up on our land. But these terrorist cells are radical Islams. They're not just the nice little Muslims next door. No, the terrorist cells, their whole goal is to bring in their Mahdi or their Messiah, and the only way they do it is through destroying the infidels, which means the United States.
Is Hezbollah and Hamas, they're certainly knocked down. Are they mortally wounded?
No, a lot of people say Hamas has already gone back in Gaza to 20,000 members. A lot of them are untrained or youth that they're grabbing. But I don't think God says in Exodus he's going to have war with Amalek in every generation. And so they're not going to be utterly eliminated until the Messiah returns. It's the spirit of the Antichrist. That's what it is.
Yes, yes. Are you surprised? I know the answer to the question, but I have to ask you, are you surprised that Israel's still standing?
Oh, not surprised at all. God says, as long as you look outside and you can see the sun and the moon, know that Israel will stand.
Does Netanyahu survive?
Boy, that's the big political football. He's supposed to be going to trial here soon. And then that nation is split in half, just like us. You have half of them that believe Netanyahu doesn't want this war to end. And the other half thinks he's just the greatest thing that's ever happened. And so we'll have to see. That is a very interesting point, how long he can hold this coalition together.
What do you think about multiple reports now coming out of the Middle East of Muslims waking up with visions and dreams of Jesus?
I believe we're going to see a lot of Muslims saved. I really do. And I believe they're going to try to throw off the yoke of radical Islam. I'm very excited about that. I'm all for it. You know, I feel for all the Iranian Christians that love Israel. It's just like people that are being terrorized by the mafia or the mob. A lot of these people, you know, they don't have anything to say or can do about it. So I just pray that there is a real radical revolution of Christianity within these nations so they can overthrow that country. But like I said, I don't see that happening till Messiah comes.
There's been reports that the underground revival in Iran is as significant as the underground revival they found in China once it opened up. It's been closed again, but the point being is that there's a revival going on in Iran. Is that true?
I believe so, definitely. There's people that I know, and I think there is a big revival taking place, as well as in Pakistan and in that area, and I'm really excited about that.
What happens to Turkey in this equation?
Well, I'll tell you what, Turkey, Erdogan is really trying to be the new empire again and be the new leader of that area. But I think that he's going to be in trouble as well.
Well, what's next for you? What are you working on?
I've got so much working on. One of them, believe it or not, Perry, the English translation of our Bible has so many errors in it. I've now, with a Hebrew linguistic expert, we've written the New Testament in Hebrew with Hebrew transliteration and English, as a matter of fact, and that is now out, and we're working on the Torah, the first 5 books, retranslating that into English. Because just like our media is biased, as you very well know, the translators were biased. And we're finding even intentional mistranslations in the King James and various translations.
So you're doing the Torah, the first 5, and what else?
Well, we've already done the whole New Testament. The entire New Testament we now have available in Hebrew with the Hebrew transliteration and in English with the corrections noted where the mistranslations were.
That's quite a project.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. But you would be surprised the intentional mistranslations that are in there, as well as the cultural misunderstandings.
Where can people get a copy of this?
On our website, esm.us. And if you have time, I could give you one quick example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one quick example from a cultural standpoint, when Peter denied Christ, the rooster crowed 3 times. It never happened. There never were roosters in Jerusalem. It happened, but not like we think. It's a title, like a general or a captain. There was a priest called the rooster, and his job every morning was to call out 3 times for everyone to begin the morning service. And then from a language point of view, ecclesia is the Greek translation for church, but it never meant church. Ecclesia was written in the Septuagint 200 years before Christ was even born, and ecclesia is mentioned all through it, and it just meant assembly. And in Acts 19, when they are writing for the goddess Diana, it says, then they dismissed the assembly. Well, the word is ecclesia. Why don't they put church? Well, they didn't want the people to think the church was worshiping Diana, so they translate it correctly as ecclesia. And then synagogue is a religious assembly. Ecclesia is a secular assembly. Well, in James, it says if one comes into your assembly with a gold ring, well, the word is synagogue, but they don't want people to think they're meeting in a synagogue. But then in the book of Revelation, it talks about the synagogue of Satan. Well, that's synagogue. Why don't they put the assembly of Satan? It's because they wanted to pick and choose what they wanted to express.
All right, check it out. esm.us is a website. There's a picture of the landing page of that. You can check that out along with all of the other resources that are. Pastor Mark, good to see you. Thanks for your time, friend. God bless you. Stay in the fight.
Thank you, Perry.